find the extra credit. Okay, you have that option, and all of that stuff is posted on the class website, and I'll usually send out an email. So if you check Student View, you should see the message under messages. You should see a message from me. And if your parents get the emails, then I usually attach the attachments if there's an attachment or a photo or something like that. But it is all available on the class website, so you really need access. You need to log in, make sure you've logged into a school computer so you can get into Student View. And the app sucks. It doesn't work. So when I do that stuff, you really are going to have to use a web browser, so Safari or Chrome or something, to log in to Student View. All right, so here we go. Example 1, solve the equation. Lots of fractions. Example 1, solve the equation. Remember, make sure you write that example 1 down. Perfect. Giant. Yes. Please don't cut yourself. I hate those slides. Bad. Go ahead. Be very careful. All right, so solve the equation. Lots of fractions here. I don't want you to be scared of fractions. You have calculators. You're allowed a calculator. It has a lovely convert fraction to decimal button. If you have a TI, it's under the math menu. Find the math button. It's first thing under the math menu, okay, where it says arrow fraction. That means convert to fraction. So you really have, it's really easy. So this certainly isn't something that should make or break your grade in this class, but it's important that we know how to manipulate these fractions. So before we go on, how do you multiply fractions? How do you multiply fractions? Let's say you had like 1/5 times 2/3. We want to multiply fractions. How do you multiply fractions? Straight across. So easy. So you just go straight across. 1 times 2 is 2, and 5 times 3 is 15. So if you had to multiply fractions, you just go straight across. What about adding or subtracting fractions? What do you need to add or subtract fractions? Common denominators. All right, that's really important. And that's where most people get screwed up. You need common denominators. That says denom. D-E-N-O-M. Common denominators. So make sure you get common denominators. And if you have common denominators like 5/7 plus 2/7. 5/7 plus 2/7 is 7/7, which is equal to 1. So when you add fractions with common denominators, then you just really have to add the numerator and the denominator stays the same. So hopefully you all remember those kinds of rules, and I want you to try them. Try them yourselves, but you can certainly check with the calculator. So, do both because you want to be really good with both. All right, so I have 6n is equal to 2/3 times the quantity 5n minus 2. What should we do first on letter A? Distribute. Yeah, if it was just 2 times the quantity 5n minus 2, what would you do? You would distribute. And we're going to do the exact same thing. What I'd like to do, since I have a fraction, I'm going to go ahead and change 5 into a fraction and 2 into a fraction. Just 5/1 and 2/1 because I want to multiply fractions straight across. So if I need to do 2/3 times 5/1, now I'm writing this out. Maybe you can do it in your head. What is 2/3 times 5/1? 10/3 straight across. 10/3 in. 2 times 5 is 10. 3 times 1 is 3 with an n. And then we're going to do 2/3 times -2/1. 2/3 times -2/1. What do we get when we multiply those fractions? -4/3. Again, just straight across. 2 times -2 is -4. 3 times 1 is 3. Multiply fractions is really easy. Straight across. Now, what should we do next? Yeah, what you got? Yeah, sure. So we want to take our ends. We've got an in here and an in here. They need to get together. So normally if it was like a 10n, what would you do? You'd subtract 10n, right? Well, we're going to subtract 10 thirds n. Subtract 10 thirds n from both sides. Just like we normally would if it was a 10n. But now this is 6 over 1n minus 10 thirds n. What do we need to do in order to subtract fractions? Common denominator, right? So I have a denominator of 3, and this first fraction has a denominator of 1. What should we do so they match? Yeah, multiply top and bottom by 3. And that's going to rework this fraction. 6 times 3 is 18 over 3. So now we have 18 thirds n minus 10 thirds n. What's 18 thirds n minus 10 thirds n? What is it? 8 thirds n. So just so you can see, you can do that on your calculators. If you wanted to double check to make sure you did your math right, all I'd have to do on my calculator is 6 minus 10 thirds. And I'm just using parentheses just so that it's 6 minus the fraction 10 thirds. Do you see that? So all of you should be able to put that into whatever calculator you've got. And then hit enter, and I have this crazy decimal. And so you either have an FD button, that's fraction decimal, or you have a TI and you're going to press math. Under the math menu, convert to fraction is the first thing there. Just hit enter and you get 8 thirds. All right. And if you have a scientific, you probably have an FD button somewhere. Did you find yours? Oh, so there, that's SD. So you could do 6 minus, what did I do, 10 thirds? Just like that. That's weird. We're going to have to figure out what mode you're in. So you might be in like a scientific mode or some weird engineering mode. So we'll double check that in a little bit. All right, so we have 8 thirds n is equal to negative 4 thirds. Now, what would you do if it was a normally just like an 8n is equal to negative 4 thirds? What would you do to get n by itself? You divide by 8, right? Well, what are we going to do? We don't have an 8, we have an 8 thirds. What are we going to do? Could we divide by 8 thirds? Sure, we absolutely can. The only problem is that I really hate dividing by a fraction. 8 thirds divided by 8 thirds is 1. That's great and all. But over here, I hate dividing by a fraction. What can I do instead? Flip and multiply. Yeah. So I don't know if you remember keep, change, flip. Have you heard that before? Keep, change, flip. Or I like to say multiply by the reciprocal. All right, so what we would really do is I hate dividing by 8 thirds. So instead, I'm going to multiply by 3/8. And really what I've done is I've multiplied both sides by 3/8. And you can see here, you get 24 over 24, which is 1. So it goes away. So we multiply by the reciprocal. And I think that's the thing that you maybe haven't done a lot of. Multiply by the reciprocal. So we are going to have an n equal to, how do you multiply fractions? Straight across. Straight across, that's going to be negative 4 times 3, negative 12. 3 times 8, 24. And then we can reduce that fraction. We can divide top and bottom by 12. And so we get negative 1 over 2. That's a whole lot of fraction work, right? Has it been a while? Long time, right? Again, you can use your calculator. So if I wanted to do, I could just do negative 4/3 divided by 8/3. I get some interesting decimal, and I can do math frac, convert to a fraction, and we get negative 1/2 as well. Okay. So lots of ways to use your calculator. So I encourage you to try both. All right, let's look at letter B. We have 2/3 x plus 3/5 equals 14/5. What are we going to do first? You could make all the denominators the same. I'm gonna do that next. So I'm gonna go ahead and say we would subtract 3/5, right? From both sides. So plus 3/5 and minus 3/5 is 0. And so I would have 2/3 x is equal to 4/15 minus 3/5. We need a common denominator. So what should I do to this fraction to fix it? Multiply by 3. Good. That says now 4/15 minus 9/15, because I'm going to multiply top and bottom. 3 times 3 is 9. 5 times 3 is 15. So what is 4/15 minus 9/15? Negative 5/15. What can we do with that fraction? Reduce it. Yeah. Always a good idea if you can reduce a fraction. Let's get it in lowest terms, because that's really just going to make life easier. 2/3 x. What should we do to reduce that fraction? Divide by 5, top and bottom. So that's going to be negative 1/3. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 15 divided by 5 is 3. All right, once again, how do I get that x by itself? I could divide by 2/3 or what? Multiply by the reciprocal. Multiply by the reciprocal. Now multiply both sides by the reciprocal. Multiply by reciprocal is the phrase of the day. Multiply by the reciprocal. Write that down. That's what you need to do today. This becomes 6/6, which is 1, which is always the goal there and next to the variable. And so we get x is equal to, and over here, I just get to multiply straight across, which is kind of nice. We get negative 3/6, which is what? Negative 1/2. Yeah. Again, if you reduce this fraction, negative 1/2. So you're going to get lots of answers today that are fractions. There's problems with decimals. Feel free to use your calculator. You should have a calculator. You need to get one if you haven't gotten one. There eventually will be some in the finance office for checkout if you need that. All right. Do you have a question on these two, ladies and gentlemen? So far, so good? All right. Last one. Example 2. Find the dimensions of the figure. Example 2. Find the dimensions of the figure. Find the dimensions of the figure. So you have a couple of these, I think exactly two questions in your work today. So in this one, they say the area is 111 inches squared. And we have a rectangle with a height of 3 and a base of 2x plus 5. And I guess we want to make sure we answer the question. So what does it mean when they say find the dimensions? What are they looking for? What does dimensions refer to? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we'll get there. What does it mean when they ask find the dimensions? What are they looking for? What does that mean, dimensions? Length. Yeah. So length by width or base by height. We want to know what's the length and the width, or what are the side lengths. But make sure you answer the question that's being asked. Too often we just solve for x because we're really good at solving for x, but that actually isn't what they're asking. So we'll get there. First of all, they're saying that the area is 111 inches squares. What do you know about the area of a rectangle? What's the formula for area of a rectangle? Length times width or base times height, right? Gotta know that formula. All right, now what can I put in place of the area? 111, sure. They told me the area is 111 square units. And what can I put in place of the base? What's the base of my rectangle? Yeah, 2x plus 5. And what's the height of my rectangle? 3, sure. What do I need to do with this 3 then? Distribute it, yeah, absolutely. So we are going to distribute that. 3 times 2x is 6x, and 3 times 5 is 15, good. And now what do you want to do next? Subtract 15, subtract 15, good. So we have 6x is equal to 111 minus 115 is 96. And then what? Divide by 6, divide by 6. 6 goes into 9 one time with 3 left over, and 6 goes into 36 6 times. We get 16. Have you ever seen division that way? I had a teacher, Mrs. Lackhouse. She's like my surrogate mother. We're very good friends. And she used to do this. And I always loved when she did that stuff out loud. 6 goes into 6 one time with 3 left over, and then 6 goes into 36 6 times. It's fast, right? It's kind of cool. All right, I love when she talked through those things because those are things like, oh, no one ever did that before. Okay, cool. All right, so we solved x. Is that what they wanted to know? No. What do we need to do with this 16? Yeah, plug it back in so we can figure out the length here of our rectangle. So that's going to be 2 times 16 plus 5. What's 2 times 16? 32 plus 5 equals 37. So what are our dimensions? What are the dimensions then? 3 inches by 37 inches. There you go. Very long and skinny rectangle. 3 inches by 37 inches. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you to have those calculators out today. Do the math. I want you to practice the math, adding common denominators and multiplying by the reciprocal. I want you to practice that. But check on your calculator too. All right, it's important. You're allowed to use the calculator. You're allowed to use the calculator in tests. So make sure you know how to use it. Okay. All right. Do you have any questions for me? All right, ladies and gentlemen, please remember to put your seat